America, the pickup truck isn't just a vehicle, it's an identity, a symbol of power, independence, and endurance. For decades, it defined the open road, the working class, and the promise of freedom on four massive wheels. But something has gone terribly wrong. What was once the most practical and patriotic machine in the country has become a financial trap. A Ford F-150, once the everyman's workhorse, now costs more than $60,000. A luxury GMC Denali pushes past $70,000. Prices have risen nearly 60% in a single decade, while real wages have barely moved. The working class that built this industry can no longer afford the machines made in their name. Dealerships are full, parking lots overflow, brand new trucks sit under the sun unsold, collecting dust. Behind their shiny chrome grills lies a storm, a silent crisis no one at the corporate headquarters wants to admit. For years, automakers chased profit margins instead of people. They traded affordability for prestige, practicality for status. Trucks became fashion statements, wrapped in leather and chrome, powered by debt. The illusion of endless demand kept the factories running, but that illusion is now cracking. And yet, beneath the surface, a new revolution is taking shape. Small electric startups, companies most people have never heard of, are building something radically different. Simple, efficient, affordable electric pickups priced under $20,000. Models from names like Slate Motors, Orionit EV, and Fisker Utility. Their message is clear. The age of the oversized gas-guzzling truck is coming to an end. In 2026, everything will change. Analysts predict a wave of dealership closures across rural America. Inventory will pile up, factories will slow down, and the pickup bubble will finally burst. The big three, Ford, GM, and Ram, will be forced to rewrite their entire business strategy just to survive. But this isn't just about economics. It's about identity, about a nation rethinking what strength really means. The myth of the giant truck, roaring across an empty desert, may soon be replaced by something quieter, smarter, and far more sustainable. This is the story of how greed, pride, and denial brought an American icon to the brink of collapse, and how a new generation of innovators armed with electricity and efficiency might just save it. The great pickup collapse isn't coming someday in the future. It's already begun. And by the end of 2026, the world's most powerful auto market will never be the same again. For decades, the pickup truck has been the beating heart of the American highway. It was never just a vehicle, it was a statement, a declaration of independence, strength, and hard work. The farmer hauling hay, the builder carrying lumber, the firefighter on call, all shared a cultural bond through their trucks. But somewhere along the road, that symbol of practicality transformed into a luxury badge, and the consequences of that shift are now shaking the entire automotive world. At first, it seemed like a success story. Automakers posted record profits year after year. Executives boasted about demand that would never slow down. Shareholders celebrated margins approaching 25% on high-end trims, unheard of in the car industry. But beneath the glossy financial reports, the math was rotting. Between 2014 and 2024, average household income in the United States rose by only 9%. Truck prices, meanwhile, soared 6 times faster. The result? Millions of loyal buyers were priced out of the market they once defined. A recent report by the fictional American Vehicle Index found that 42% of potential truck buyers in 2025 walked away from dealerships after realizing that even used models required monthly payments exceeding $900.00. To keep the illusion of affordability alive, automakers extended loan terms. 48 months became 60, then 72, and finally 84 months, a 7-year financial commitment for a depreciating asset. Some lenders quietly began offering 96-month contracts, betting that customers wouldn't notice how much interest they were paying over time. The bubble grew silently. For working Americans, the shift felt like betrayal. Pickup trucks were supposed to represent them, the builders, the ranchers, the small-town workers who kept the country running. Instead, they became status symbols for the suburban elite, Companies like Ford and GM began focusing their marketing on lifestyle and prestige: panoramic sunroofs, massaging seats, 18-speaker sound systems. The trucks grew bigger, heavier, and more expensive, even as average fuel economy stagnated. The modern pickup, once built to tow and haul, now served as a commuter vehicle for people who rarely used its capabilities. Meanwhile, production costs rose only modestly, about 18% according to Automotive Business Journal. The rest was pure markup. One former Ford executive, speaking anonymously, admitted that the company deliberately limited cheaper configurations to push buyers toward premium models. "We could sell a $35,000 0-cents truck tomorrow," he said, "but why would we when customers keep signing for 70? That mindset worked brilliantly. Until it didn't. The American pickup has reached a breaking point. It's no longer the symbol of strength it once was. It's become a mirror reflecting the fragility of consumer debt and the arrogance of corporate greed. The market built on pride and horsepower is now running on fumes, and 2026 may be the year the engine finally stalls. By the middle of 2025, the American pickup market had begun to resemble a warehouse more than an industry. Dealerships that once celebrated sold-out lots were suddenly drowning in inventory. Massive concrete parking yards stretched for miles outside Kansas City, Dallas, and Detroit, filled with brand-new trucks wrapped in factory plastic, waiting for buyers who never came. The illusion of infinite demand, which had fueled years of unchecked production, was finally collapsing under its own weight. Manufacturers had spent the better part of a decade building for growth, not reality. The pandemic years had warped expectations. Cheap loans, stimulus checks, and remote work created a temporary boom in vehicle sales. Companies like Ford and GM misread the spike as a permanent shift, doubling production capacity between 2021 and 2023. They added new assembly lines, expanded storage facilities, and locked in contracts with suppliers for record output. By 2024, those same suppliers were being begged to slow deliveries, as automakers found themselves buried under unsold trucks. To keep the illusion alive, the industry turned to a familiar trick: discounts disguised as generosity. 0% financing for 72 months, trade in your old truck and pay nothing for 90 days. Loyalty cash for returning customers. The slogan sounded optimistic, but inside the corporate offices, panic was spreading. According to a report by the fictional North American Automotive Federation, dealers nationwide were sitting on more than 1.8 million unsold pickups by October 2025, nearly triple the normal supply. In Texas alone, the state with the highest truck ownership in the country, over 220,000 new trucks sat idle, depreciating before their first mile. Consumers began to notice the cracks. Trucks that had been advertised as in high demand were suddenly offered with $10,000, 0 cents, or even $15,000, 0 cents discounts. Ads that once screamed confidence now whispered desperation. The bubble was no longer invisible. People on social media joked about truck farms where brand new F-150s were harvested every season but never sold. The laughter masked a grim reality. The value of used pickups was plunging faster than anyone expected. Vehicles bought just a year earlier were losing up to 30% of their value, wiping out equity for millions of owners. The overproduction crisis also exposed another uncomfortable truth. The customers that automakers had been building for didn't really exist. High-end trims like the Ram Limited and Silverado High Country were designed for affluent buyers who wanted power with luxury, but that market was finite. When economic pressure mounted, those buyers retreated to smaller SUVs and EVs, leaving the overpriced trucks stranded. The traditional blue-collar buyers who once fueled the industry couldn't afford to come back. The gap between the product and its audience had become a canyon. Automakers tried to downplay the danger. Press releases highlighted temporary slowdowns and strategic adjustments. Executives promised that electric models would soon revitalize demand. But behind the scenes, production schedules were being slashed. Ford's Dearborn plant, once operating 3 shifts around the clock, quietly cut back to 1. General Motors delayed new model launches, citing supply chain optimization. The truth was simpler. There was no more room to store the unsold trucks. What began as a market correction was turning into a full-scale collapse. The American pickup, once the crown jewel of the auto industry, was now the anchor dragging it down. The myth of endless demand had been shattered, and the companies that built their fortunes on that myth were about to face a reckoning they could no longer postpone. By early 2026, the economic shock that had been simmering in the pickup market finally reached the people who had kept it alive for generations. The collapse wasn't just visible in empty dealerships or balance sheets. It was visible in the faces of working Americans who suddenly found themselves chained to debts they could no longer carry. The same truck that once symbolized pride and freedom had turned into an anchor of financial despair. For the first time in decades, pickup repossessions surged across rural and suburban America. In states like Ohio, Oklahoma, and Montana, tow truck companies reported record demand, with some drivers collecting as many as 5 vehicles a night. It became common to see a 2-year-old truck hauled away from a driveway under the faint light of dawn, leaving behind a family who had simply run out of money before the warranty ran out. According to a fictional report by the National Vehicle Finance Council, nearly 29% of pickup loans in 2026 were considered underwater, meaning the owner owed more than the vehicle's value. It wasn't just an economic number. It was a quiet humiliation spreading across towns that once wore their trucks as badges of honor. Banks began to panic. Major lenders like Crescent Auto Finance and Horizon Bank pulled back on long-term vehicle loans, citing unacceptable volatility in the market. Small-town dealerships, which relied on those loans to approve buyers, suddenly couldn't close deals. Many of them turned into ghost lots, their flags still fluttering over rows of unsold machines that would never find owners. In places like Amarillo and Billings, dealerships that had survived 3 recessions finally shut their doors for good. Former sales managers took jobs driving delivery vans or managing car washes. For decades, they had been the beating heart of America's vehicle economy. Now, they were its casualties. The financial collapse spread upward, too. Manufacturers, desperate to keep investors calm, began buying back their own unsold inventory to hide the full scale of the problem. Insiders leaked emails from Ford executives describing the move as strategic repositioning, though one internal memo referred to it more honestly: "We are buying ghosts." Those ghost trucks, stored in off-site warehouses, were later resold to rental fleets at a loss, further devaluing the brand. The corporate narrative was still one of optimism, but internally fear had set in. Every manufacturer understood that once customers lost faith in the product, there was no turning back. People stopped trusting the system. A survey by the fictional American Transport Institute found that 74% of buyers believed dealership pricing was intentionally deceptive, and more than half said they would rather buy directly from a manufacturer, even if it meant waiting months for delivery. The old dealership model, once built on personal relationships and local credibility, was crumbling under digital transparency. Customers no longer saw the smiling salesman as a neighbor, but as an extension of a rigged corporate machine. Satisfaction ratings for full-size pickups fell below those for compact sedans for the first time in history. As the trust faded, so did the culture that surrounded the pickup itself. The working class, the very people who had given the truck its mythic status, had been priced out long ago. By 2026, the typical pickup buyer earned nearly twice the national median income. In other words, the trucks meant for builders and welders were now toys for executives and influencers. A cultural disconnect opened wide. The glossy advertisements showing rugged men towing boats through the desert felt insulting when real construction workers were driving decade-old vans because they couldn't afford the vehicles built for them. Automakers, desperate to stay relevant, tried to shift their narrative. Marketing campaigns pivoted from power and toughness to luxury and lifestyle. Ram introduced a $110,000 0-cents titanium edition truck with a built-in refrigerator and rear seat entertainment screens. GM's promotional videos featured their trucks parked in front of modern glass homes, the voiceover speaking of elevated experiences rather than horsepower. The strategy worked briefly, attracting a niche of affluent buyers, but it alienated everyone else. The people who once saw trucks as part of their identity now viewed them as symbols of excess and corporate greed. It was during this chaos that new competitors began to move in. While Detroit's giants clung to their outdated production models, a wave of electric startups emerged, agile and unburdened by legacy costs. Companies like Slate Motors, Orion EV, and Fisker Utility introduced trucks that were everything the market had forgotten: simple, affordable, and functional. The Slate E-Truck 1, starting at just under $20,000, 0 cents, offered a 250-mile range, a durable composite body, and modular parts designed for easy repair. It didn't have massaging seats or 20-inch screens, but it had something far more powerful: honesty. At first, the major manufacturers laughed them off. Ford executives dismissed the startups as garage projects. GM publicly claimed that no one wants a cheap EV pickup. But within a year, the tone changed. Videos of Slate's trucks hauling concrete and livestock flooded the internet, showing that affordability didn't mean weakness. Farmers and small businesses began placing orders directly from the company's website, bypassing dealerships entirely. Orion EV introduced a $24,000 0 cents model with a removable battery pack that could be charged from a standard outlet. A direct hit to the big players, still selling gas-powered behemoths at triple the price. By late 2026, the landscape looked unrecognizable. Dealership closures rippled through small towns, leaving behind empty showrooms and unpaid loans. Electric startups grew faster than their supply chains could handle. The American pickup was undergoing an identity crisis deeper than any technological shift. It was redefining what strength, purpose, and practicality meant in a changing world. The roar of oversized engines was being replaced by the quiet hum of electric motors, and for the first time since the post-war boom, the question wasn't who could build the biggest truck. It was who could build one that people could actually afford. The fall of the old pickup empire wasn't just an economic correction, it was a cultural reckoning. For years, automakers had built monuments to excess and called it progress. But as the debt pile settled and the factories slowed, a new kind of progress began to emerge. One built on accessibility, sustainability, and humility. The great crash of America's most iconic vehicle had cleared the road for something new. The only question that remained was whether the people who built the legend could survive the world that replaced it. By the winter of 2026, the American pickup had become something entirely different from what it had been a decade earlier. The collapse that once seemed unthinkable had already happened quietly, not with explosions or bankruptcies, but with silence. Sales that never came, factories that idled, and a generation that simply stopped believing. The old image of the massive roaring truck rolling down a desert highway had faded into a nostalgic memory, replaced by something smaller, simpler, and humbler. The pickup revolution, as journalists began to call it, wasn't about horsepower anymore. It was about survival. The transition began almost invisibly. Government fleets in states like Colorado and Washington started pilot programs replacing gasoline pickups with compact electric models. Delivery companies followed suit, realizing that maintenance costs on lightweight EV trucks were 40% lower than their gas-powered predecessors. In rural towns where once the deep growl of diesel engines echoed every morning, a quiet hum began to take its place. Farmers who once swore by F-250s started experimenting with small electric work trucks that could haul the same load for a fraction of the fuel cost. The cultural shift was so gradual that few noticed it happening until it was complete. At the same time, the identity of the pickup itself was rewritten. The exaggerated masculinity that had defined truck marketing for decades, steel jaws, black smoke, and patriotic slogans, was replaced by a new kind of pride. Strength was no longer about size, it was about endurance and efficiency. Slate Motors released an ad campaign titled, "Strong Enough for Tomorrow," showing their compact e-truck pulling a trailer of solar panels up a mountain road. It went viral not for its special effects, but for its honesty. The company's founder, Elijah Crane, became something of an anti-hero in the industry, often mocking traditional automakers during interviews. "They sold dreams of power," he said. "We're just trying to sell trucks people can afford to use." Detroit's response came too late. Ford's Project Flint electric work truck finally hit showrooms in the fall of 2026. But by then, consumer loyalty had shifted. Buyers no longer cared about legacy brands, they cared about trust, and trust had become the rarest currency in the automotive world. Smaller companies with open pricing and modular designs thrived, while the old giants struggled to convince anyone that they had truly changed. GM's last-ditch advertising campaign, "Real Power Never Quiets," backfired spectacularly after journalists exposed inflated battery range claims. The brand that had once dominated American highways was now mocked online as a relic of corporate denial.